Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast, your home for all things Chelsea FC. Nick, Dan, and myself cover all the match reviews from the latest Chelsea matches. We cover the team news and even throw you some exclusive interviews. Thank you already for being an awesome listener. And you know what? Let's jump right in. Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast, bringing you back. I'm your host, Brandon. Joining me as always, Dan and Nick. Gentlemen, it's good to be back. I know I've been a little absent of late. I know I've not met all of my commitments, as you guys like to remind everybody when I'm not there. Yep. Nick, Dan, appreciate you guys' support during this time.
we certainly would never talk shit about you behind your back on shows that you could then listen to later. So
you don't call, you don't write, you don't text, you just ghost. Real no-show. It's really just unprofessional.
Man.
Well, that changed quickly. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and move it on from this Sobfest to introducing our guest, Mike Ruiz, joining us back again from ESPN and the Batard show. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, honored to be a return guest, guys. Thank you for having me.
You can start your tracking your caps as well, so we can get an all-time appearance list going here soon.
Now, to be fair, we did just have we're gonna have Joe Tweeds on for part 2 and 3 this week. You have a little ways to go to catch up to Joe, but you're working your way in, Mike, and we appreciate that.
I'm just waiting to get the captain's armband from Fowler.
Oh,
I love that.
We should make one of those. That's actually really smart. Damn it.
All right. Well, add that to the never-ending idea list. But again, super pumped to have you back. I know the first time you're here, I missed that episode, not to start a trend or anything. But anyways, it sounds like we will be in London around the same time, might even be able to meet up. So we're looking forward to that. Dan, moving on to you and your iTunes reviews, just flooded the script with all of these, man. What do we have going on here?
Yeah, manna from heaven in the terms of 5-star reviews. We had Walton Dash from the USA. Was pretty excited about the fact that Chelsea crushed Man City. It was wonderful. We all enjoyed that as well. We had Ryan Vandevel from Canada, who was talking a little bit about Christensen, asked some questions there. You're going to want to listen to the podcast we did with Joe Tweeds. We had Stu Logan 22, and said that he knew when we were not mentioning a former goalkeeper's name that he had found the right podcast.
Oh, man.
Wonder who might he be talking about. Tom Freakin 13, also from the USA, also talking about how West Coast kickoffs suck, and was throwing some love to our friend Mike Flynn, who's not on this episode today, but representing Seattle. We had A. Silver as well from the U.S., David Feiner from the U.S., and then a really cool one, Julian Ente.
Well, now we've lost him completely.
Yeah, but here's
you butchered his name.
Yeah, I did. I butchered it. That's gonna be my new nickname. Just really embodying the Daniel Day-Lewis.
Anstey. It's Anstey. Yeah, you got it.
And a season ticket holder for Chelsea, 25 years, and just, listens to us when they go and walk their dog in the evening. And that's really, really cool. So very nice to connect with, a different kind of generation of Chelsea supporter, and also from the UK, which is always exciting. So as always, leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Bam! We talk about it in the beginning of the show.
Love it, especially the international flavor that we have going. It's not just about us being American or you in the UK. There are millions of us around the world, so cool to be touching so many different people around the world. From Patreon, a massive shout out to Devin G. And Christian Turi, both of you joining the Patreon party that we have going on. Just posted a little video the BBC did about Maurizio Sarri and kind of his humble beginnings. It's just a good place for us to just continuously have a conversation between matches. So again, go check it out. New rewards coming soon. All right, well, with that being said, before we jump into the meat of the script, as always, we are going to jump into a couple quick ads.
Okay, the second ad that we want to talk about is actually really cool. So in addition to code LondonPod getting you 10% off at classicfootballshirts.co.uk, as you've heard for a few weeks now, we've referenced this, that we might have a couple of sneaky contests or promotions, and we are going to do one of those over the next week or so. So this is going to be our millionth download contest, and we're really excited that we were able to surpass 1 million total downloads in September. I think we were still in shock. We didn't really know what to do with that number, honestly. So we knew we wanted to give back in a way to our fans. And so Classic Football Shirts has been awesome. And they gave us a 2014-15 yellow signed ASP kit to give away. So that's really awesome. You'll have to watch our Twitter and Instagram by the time this downloads. We should have some stuff up detailing the contest. But essentially, follow us, follow Classic Football Shirts on both platforms. Comment on the post that you see and give your favorite ASP tribute as he just surpassed his 300th appearance for the club and just signed a new deal. Use the hashtag London is Blue 1M, so 1 million. And we're just really pumped about this, guys. Like, we were never in our wildest dreams were we ever going to surpass 1 million downloads. We did that in September. We're celebrating it now, and we're just really grateful to everyone who's decided to tune in and support our show over the years. So wanted to do a little something to give back.
Right. It just helps having a partner to help enrich that giving back to the community, which are all of you. And you are all amazing. All 1 million of you. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, before I know I said this last time and I'm so sorry, jump into the actual match review. It is related, but I guess we just want to remind everybody with a lot of the discussion on both sides, the media and the fans right now, about the racism at Chelsea. And again, this isn't a Chelsea problem. Society, it's a human problem. But I know, Dan, you've put out a tweet. Nick, you've put out a tweet. I've retweeted in support of all of that. I know we've obviously reminded you guys that we did the series with Amity and Dan Levine at the beginning of the season, specifically talking about racism and anti-Semitism. And again, we're not here to point the finger and start a blame game. I'd say we just want to remind everybody that it exists, that we don't support it, that we don't like it, and that football should be an inclusive sport. It is heartbreaking to know that there are those in our community that partake in some of these things. And we just, instead of pointing the finger at, oh, well, what about X club? What about X group? We should really take pride in our friends and our group and say, hey, we've eradicated it. We want to be the shining light, essentially, of Premier League clubs, saying we've got our act together. I know the club do the Rainbow Laces. Obviously, there's a huge Say No to Anti-Semitism campaign going on. I don't know. Look, history will write itself. We have an option right now. We have a choice, all of us, to decide what side of that we want to be on. And, Nick, I guess we just want to make it very clear which side we are on, right?
Absolutely. Right. I mean, it's, we were talking right before the show. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous that we have to do this for the 5th time this season already. We did a series this summer that was really uncomfortable to record, and it was an introspective. It was looking at the club. It was using people like Paul Canaville and others to tell stories about times at Chelsea that were not great back in the 70s and 80s. And we think it's pretty obvious that the small minority of people who are out there making statements or using flags with terrible symbolism and everything else are the worst of us, and like they should be called out. They should be chastised. They should be embarrassed. And it's unfortunate that Chelsea's as a holistic club is being kind of shine the light on for some of these incidents. But it's also it's what we have to do, I guess, until we get this thing right, Dan.
Yeah, Fabregas actually talked about that point after the midweek match and referenced the fact that it is something that is not just a problem with Chelsea. It is a problem within Chelsea at the moment, but it is a larger problem across all of football and just a world issue. And that if it does need to be Chelsea as an example right now, and for us to learn and to help change minds and help motivate the people to the left of us or the people to the right of us to take a song or take a word and help them understand some of the context about why that's not okay. And I think even today, you look at some of the people reporting on this, and I think our friend Dan Levine gets probably the most flack for this, and I think that's a guy who has a lot of is putting himself out there and has put the target on him for being someone who has really tried to highlight this issue. And I think people ask a couple of questions of him: is why does he not talk about other related issues? Why does he not talk about other related clubs? I mean, he is a Chelsea beat reporter. I mean, he is going to be very narrowly focused in that. And I think maybe there is a great pitch to him or an opportunity for him to expand the work he's doing in this regard. But ultimately, he's not reporting it to make life difficult for Chelsea. He just wants the world to be a better place, and I think we would all want the world to be that better place that he's talking about and that we're talking about. And the fact that Chelsea supporters, quote unquote, would throw death threats at him on Twitter and talk about how they're going to beat him up heading to a match, it just really is the worst type of thing. And you can kind of be assured that we will continue to use this platform and all platforms that we have, our personal social media accounts, the accounts for the podcast, to help shine a light on the great work the club is doing, because I think that's going amiss in all of this is that there is some amazing things like the anti-Semitism campaign, our work with Kick It Out, our work with Building Bridges, our work with Rainbow Laces, that we have done so much as a club to try to push things forward. And for a truly minority fringe element of this club to get so much publicity is just idiotic. So we would ask you to join us in helping to stamp it out.
And I just want to give Janique, who's been a longtime listener of our show, just a shout, because I mean, not only is she a person of color, but she also commented on one of my tweets yesterday, which was essentially the whataboutism. So she said the whataboutism is the worst take. I don't care about what Spurs or any other club does. We have to fix the problems on our own and clean up our own house. It's 100% accurate. Like, just because, when you're a little kid, your brother or sister does something stupid and you do something stupid doesn't mean that it cancels each other out. Right. So, let's just be smart about this. And, we've had a lot of support on this show for the episodes that we were able to record. We're going to continue to take that mantle forward and, be rest assured that, for the journalists who are covering the show, I mean, we will always support that, even if it's really uncomfortable for us as fans.
All right. We can take this offline if we need. You know where to find us. I promise we will engage. So now, match review time. The opponent was Brighton Hove Albion, hanging out at the Premier League Stadium, Amex Stadium. It was this past Sunday, December 16th. In case you missed it, Brighton 1, Chelsea 2. That's right, folks. Keep the win train rolling. Dan, lineup time. Any spoilers, or are we just going to roll through the usual?
Well, you might be surprised because we did talk with our friend Hazard Kinsella in the last episode about how this lineup of having Eden Hazard play in the false nine or play as the focal point of the attack was something we might see against top six opponents, teams that were going to match us with possession. Well, we were wrong. We were dead wrong, because we saw Kepa starting goal. We had Rudiger, Alonso, Azpilicueta, Luis, the back four, Jorginho, Conte, Kovacic comes back from a little bit of a midweek knock, and then Eden Hazard central, flanked by Willian and Pedro. We had Willy Caballero on the bench, who has not had to really enjoy any work this season. Great way to collect a paycheck. Andreas Christensen, Emerson, Cesc Fabregas were all on the bench but unused. And then we did see Ross Barkley, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and Olivier Giroud, who all came in as substitutes. But I think the initial shock, Mike, of seeing Hazard again was maybe just a bit of a surprise to me, because I didn't think we would kind of pull that one forward again so quickly.
I thought that using Hazard as a false nine was sort of a response to just how overwhelming Man City was, and it was just a fresh twist on something that didn't actually work out for Antonio Conte's version of Chelsea. It worked against Man City, even though if you look at how City controlled that game, it sort of seemed eerily similar. But then Chelsea just started scoring, and they got contributions from guys that people wanted contributions from all season long. in Luis and N'Golo Kante. I was surprised to see it against Brighton. This would seem to be, I think Chelsea is most effective if they have a striker who can produce and net the goals. It doesn't seem like they have one of those. So the best remaining option is this false nine approach. I think Hazard probably controls the game more this way, even though we don't necessarily see the goal scoring output that we saw earlier in the season from the left side. But it's working right now, and it seems to be the best of options that aren't exactly informed, to say the least.
I think, the funny thing is we'd go back and forth of, should we play the false nine? Should we play with Olivier Giroud? Unfortunately, these days we don't really talk about any other options. But kind of my point is, at the end of the day, you just want to get the 3 points. And if this is what Maurizio Sarri thought was the best approach to get the 3 points, I think that's really interesting. We've got a lot more matches to go, obviously back in the Carabao Cup later in the week. But, hey, he's sticking with it a little bit. Maybe he just wants to give it some more reps. I thought the team did really well today because they weren't under, is the same kind of pressure as City, right? Like this false nine approach was much more on the front foot than obviously against City.
Wait, Brandon, are you saying that Brighton is not as good as City?
Look, with all due respect, no.
Brighton have had some insanely good home form this season, so.
Right. So have Manchester City.
Yeah, cool.
I like context here. Now, let me run it down. Cool. So Chelsea with a measly 58% possession on the road. Actually, only 3 shots on target, but they did get a total of 10. 828 touches, 650 passes. A lot less clearances today, not 30 like against City, but still managed 4 offside. So I see a nice little XG map for Brighton Chelsea. Dan, anything over the top obvious that you want to touch on before we roll into the goals?
Well, Chelsea were meeting their expected goal total, which is fantastic.
True.
So, the expected goal 0.5 for Brighton and then 1.9 for Chelsea. So nothing too crazy, and both what they would identify as the biggest shot opportunities ended up being goals. So, we've seen a couple times this season where we've created the biggest chance and the targeting systems have misfired, spark in the system, a little bit of a computing problem.
Thanks, Skywalker. All right, so the goals time, 17th minute, kicking us off. It was Pedro at the beginning, assist to Eden Hazard. Nick, man, how much did you like that one?
It was just beautiful. It was one of the goals that you see Liverpool or City score on the regular. So it was really nice that we were able to get one for ourselves. It was totally justified. We had controlled the early part of the game pretty well. And I think Eden Hazard, especially in the first half, it looked like he was on early season form. He was able to turn a couple of defenders in the box, put a perfect and inch perfect pass through. Pedro was onside for the goal. It can be argued that maybe there could have been a shout for offside due to kind of shielding off the opportunity from the keeper, but it was not given, and Pedro was able to finish really easily 1-0.
Yeah, that pass beat so many players. That was a phenomenal pass from Eden. Moving to the 33rd minute, Mike. This time, Eden Hazard on the score sheet. Assist to everyone's favorite winger to hate, Willian.
It was a good game from Willian. Obviously, he's one of the more polarizing members, but this is the center forward in Saudi Bob controlling the game. Once again, Hazard's just such a brilliant player. With each passing week and each passing fixture, you get more and more concerned as he continues his public flirtation with Real Madrid, which is, at this point, he's just twisting the knife each time. Look, it's Brighton, but it's an away fixture, and off of such an emotional game, this is such a letdown spot. And it's good to be boosted by players like Willian and Pedro in spots like this. This is why you still have them on the roster. And this is when they need to step up. And they did. And it wasn't easy in that second half, especially. So you needed this sort of performance from those guys.
Yeah, Mike, I think the key on this one was that the high press worked effectively, and not for the first time this season. It was a quick turnover, and I actually don't know where Eden Hazard found that speed, but he completely ran away from their entire back line. It was very impressive.
The speed is an aspect of his game that he doesn't flash all that much, at least on the club level. He's more just this sort of brute strength and unmatched balance and just a pit bull. It was a little crazy to see him flash that speed. It's almost, you sort of forget that this dude has that in him. But he certainly also seems like he's rounding into a better shape despite the knocks that he's had. I'm not sure he entered the season in the best of shape. Not that he's ever been that sort of player that needs to be, world-class level fitness. But it does seem as though we're seeing a more fit Eden Hazard.
Yeah, man likes his hamburgers. That's all we need to remember.
Yeah.
I just want to point out from Willian's standpoint, that was an amazing heads-up play. You have to remember, he was gifted the ball surprisingly. Most players would have caught them off guard, and they would have taken a second to pick their head up. He received that ball with his head up, realized Eden was in on goal, and he received and released that ball so quickly. Brighton never stood a chance. So, look, credit where credit is due. Willian, that was a massive heads-up play that I think a lot of fans will actually miss understanding just how tough that is. And then Dan giving you the cherry on top in the 66th minute here. Solly March assist Bernardo.
Yeah, I actually would say Solly March.
What happened? Come on, man.
Well, no, I was going to say Solly March actually was one of the most threatening players for all of Brighton the entire match. So if it was going to be somebody, that was a good shout for who would be the person to let the goal through. Obviously, Kepa looked a little disappointed with the performance from some of the defenders in the box. We're not going to point individual fingers, but it really changed the whole dynamic of the game. We had gone through the first half really in cruise control, not being pressured. There were times where we were just almost walking the ball out of the back, and Brighton really didn't know what to do with us, and that just gave them the shot of adrenaline to the chest, and they came back for the next 25, 30 minutes and really tried to put it to us. So credit to them for not giving up. It was a terrible, terrible goal to give away, and you know what? We don't have to see Brighton for a while, so that's exciting.
I mean, it was a terrible second half, though, right? Like the team let their foot off the gas, not for the first time this season again, and it made really hard work of a game that could have been 3-0, 4-0 easy. And I think I tweeted this out after the game, but I think that is probably the area beyond some of like the sorry ball technical stuff that he works on in training. That's probably the area that Maurizio Sarri has to figure out, is the mentality thing. Why can Chelsea look so good in one moment, Brandon, and that moment being the first half, and then look so completely either disinterested or just terrible in the second half? And it's partly due to Brighton playing better, but there's a mental thing happening. I'm not sure what's going on.
So that's a good question. I mean, it's obviously, it's also the first question in our script, which you were supposed to be answering. So thank you for taking over my job.
You got it.
No, so Liam.
Well, hey, you go away. You go away sometimes,
yeah.
okay? And we have to step up. It's not easy.
Careful what you ask
but we do it.
You're not my real dad, Brandon. You're not my real dad.
That's true.
Come on.
Get Maury in here.
So Liam Toomey of ESPN FC UK and very close friend of the pod, he actually tweeted that this was an example of why there's no easy match in the Premier League. So it's kind of weird. Like, he's saying that, look, Brighton fought. Like, they made something happen. And a lot of us as Chelsea fans were sitting there going, I don't see it as neutral perspective as that. I'm very biased. I'm sitting here thinking, why wasn't it 3-0? Why wasn't it 4-1? Why was it a closer match than what it should have been? And to me, I think part of it is just, as a player, it is easy to get up for the big games, but it was just a simple lapse. It was, Aspie didn't win the first header. Louise wasn't ready for the ball to come across. Sully March literally just wrapped his foot around him and poked it in from close range. I think it was a bit of a lapse. And, obviously we've heard Maurizio talk about the mental strength is something that this team needs to work on. I think that's just a case of what it is. The good news, though, at the end of the day is, look, Dan, it's a sloppy 3 points, but just 3 points, and we saw a lot of bright stuff going forward. So, without getting too much into the weeds of maybe the mistake or the mental lapse kind of at the end, I still think there's a lot more going forward that outweighs the negatives. Obviously, the scoreline shows that.
Yeah, definitely. I think what we also are getting the opportunity to see is that there are certain players when they're brought on who can shift the dynamic of the game a little bit. We saw that with Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming on today, and some of the things he was doing, even on the right wing, which I think we would all look at him as getting an opportunity to really flourish as a midfielder. But in the absence of individuals he trusts fully in the Premier League, Mauricio Sarri has, deputized Ruben underneath, either Willian or Pedro to come in and play the third forward attacker. And, that's the type of thing, the type of substitutions you think about. Callum Hudson-Odoi getting to the point where he could come on in a Premier League match, Ethan Ampadu coming in. And those are the type of things I think you want to talk about, mentality shifts or the ability to keep the pedal on the gas and not just worry about fuel economy for the season. You need to kind of put some nice kind of injections in there, and that would be, I think, a little bit of youth, a little bit of pace, and things that are really going to force opposition teams to play a different type of Chelsea when we move through. And I don't know if you see anything different, Mike, or have a thought around where you think this Chelsea team can recover some of this, I think, mental fortitude to not kind of lapse at the tail end of games.
Is it fair to say that Saudi is still trying to figure this out? We're midway through the year, but I'm not so sure it's about mental fortitude as it is that we kind of have a weird roster. We have a weird roster, especially for this sort of philosophy, this style of Saudi. And in trying to figure things out and find lineups, you're going to have things that sort of look like listless performances sometimes as you try to find the right combination. You're picking the right spots to play around with things in the Carabao Cup and against Brighton. But all in all, I'm pretty thrilled with how this season's gone, and I'm all for just sort of having some growing pains because right now they're 3 points clear thanks to Southampton in terms of Champions League qualifying, and it's been a pretty incredible season. You just have two teams at the top that are sort of just running away with things. So I obviously everybody has their preferences. Loftus-Cheek is someone that I think most Chelsea people, because he's come up through the youth squad, somebody that everyone has been wanting to see get the opportunity. Ross Barkley just seems to be a real catalyst for goals in timely occasions, and Kovacic has you sort of scratching your head because there's so many goals on the table for that position in Saudi's offense, in Saudi's attacking, yet he's not really showing up at all in the goal-scoring sheet. You can count on Conte more than you can count on Kovacic, and that's not something that anybody had entering this season.
Right. No, it's a really good point. I mean, it's kind of funny, though. Just touch on Ruben. So now he's playing inside forward or attacking wing, I guess you could say, and central mid. But I think his flexibility helps because now we can play Ruben and Ross Barkley at the same time. Just Ross, my man, you might want to zone in on that shot you had out there. It was a little wild. That's okay. All right, moving on to Eden Hazard, right? So this is now second Premier League match in a row that he's played the false nine. And obviously with, as Dan kind of talked about, Naz saying that he didn't think that this would be a go-to approach most of the time. Here we are. It's 2 in the spin. Mike, do you think that this is more of a long-term play with Eden. And what I'm thinking of is this going to make him happy? He talked about he doesn't really touch the ball, but I think that's more of a City. I think maybe Mauricio is even using this to show him, like, look, no, actually, you can be involved a lot more in this role to keep him happy. Is this, I guess, long-term strategy for Eden and Mauricio?
It leads to all sorts of speculation. I'm not entirely sure. Can I reserve judgment because it's just been 2 games, and I'm not so sure what the. I was really surprised to see him play the false 9 against Brighton. Is that sort of the opinion of everyone here on this pod? I thought this was a sort of reaction to Manchester City being overwhelming and Saudi trying to do something different, and him trying to get out there against Brighton was a bit surprising. So I'm not entirely sure what the play is here. I think the play for Saudi is to get 3 points. I'm not so sure it's to placate to Eden Hazard and trying to make him happy, because this style has generally made him happy if we judge him by his quotes all season long. So I'm not really sure what the plan is here, but as long as Chelsea keeps getting 3 points, I'm going to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I think it's a product of, unfortunately, Morata coming off injured early on Thursday against Vidi, and then Giroud having to come on. Maybe Mauricio didn't want to have to use Giroud against Vidi, and obviously Hazard was rested. He didn't even go on that away day, so maybe that's the reason. But I also think, we've talked about this as a show before too, Mike. If our strikers 1A and 1B are not contributing consistent goals, and I know Giroud's come on as of late, but if we know for a fact that neither one of those guys is going to get 20 goals this season, and we have a guy in Eden Hazard who is definitely capable of doing that, then do you just play the odds and try and go small and interchange and have Pedro and Willian swap wings every once in a while and try and confuse the hell out of a admittedly slow Brighton? I thought that might have been the play, and I think it worked pretty well in the first half, and then there wasn't anything to really look at in the second.
Yeah, it's very clearly, because of what you just outlined, our best option at the moment. And to turn to a world-class player like Eden Hazard, there are worse situations that you could be in. It has potential to be something that's fascinating, but I think it just might be a product of fitness and form at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how we sort of rely on that as you get into the holiday fixtures and the game starts stacking up. What exactly the approach is. Maybe this is an opportunity, depending on Morata's fitness, to get his confidence going, because he should be playing a little bit more regularly. If I had to venture a guess, I'd say the plan isn't for Eden Hazard to be this sort of false 9 from here on out. I'll leave that to you guys to discuss, but who knows? This is all very new for us, this style, this manager, and he seems to be figuring things out as we go along here.
I mean, City and Liverpool are both doing it with small attacks. I think that people are finding new ways to be effective in the Premier League without having to have maybe a big, strong target man like Chelsea have had so much success with. So, it can be a new era a little bit in the Premier League, and well, time will only tell, obviously. But it is worth pointing out, thank you to Captain Skull 22 on the Chelsea subreddit, saying Eden Hazard has now contributed to more goals and assists than the entire last season in the Premier League, that is. So, he's got 18 goals and assists this season? Is that 9 and 9, right, Dan? 8 goals, 9 assists?
8 goals, 9 assists, so 17.
All right. Either way, maths, it is.
Nah,
it is what
fun.
it is.
Yeah, so it's 16 last season, 34 appearances. Obviously, last season is probably not the best benchmark to use because it was a little bit of rough going. But the fact that he's already at 17 means he's on pace to have his best goal assist season ever. And that is exciting. When you talk about what's going to keep Chelsea firmly locked in the conversation for top 4. And if, these top 2 maybe slip up at some point here, we know one of them does have it, genetically, predisposition. We could find ourselves, back in that conversation. So excellent to see Ed in this form, and it's been pretty exciting.
All right. Well, how about this? So when we signed Maurizio Sarri, he was very, very clear that he is not a checkbook manager, right? He likes to coach. He likes to do his work on the training pitch and not so much in just scouting. So with that being said, Nick, who do you think has improved the most under Maurizio?
Ooh, who do I think's improved the most? Let's see. That is really interesting.
All right, time's up. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, it could be Rudiger. It could be Rudiger to this point. And not to say that he had a hell of a lot of room to improve, because I think we all respect his game and think that he's, kind of has future captain kind of written all over him, just due to some of the leadership. But I'll give a sneak preview for our shows with Joe Tweeds this week. Joe basically said it, when considering center back pairings, it's Antonio Rudiger and someone, right? So point being that he's the stalwart, and I think he's had easily some of the best performances of his Chelsea career this year as compared to last. And I think he could be developed even further. Maybe not toward, maybe not like a Koulibaly type, Brandon, but I think he still has a little ways to go. But he's certainly impressed me this year.
I like it. Dan, who do you think has improved the most?
The only thing I would say to counter Nick's point there is there's still the times where he's looking off the line and kind of the awareness of where he's at to playing someone on or off sides. So I'm sure it will be addressed by our wonderful coach, Maurizio Sarri. But I think there's still some opportunity, though, even though we did have some people tweet at us with the gifs from the movie Rudy indicating that, because we did a poll of this, that they believe Nick is correct when they talk about Rudiger. But to answer your question, Brandon, and get there, with a little bit of a preamble, I would say Eden Hazard, but I think Eden Hazard was already on this little bit of rise when you saw what he was doing at the World Cup, and Sarri has basically just positionally set him up to continue that run. When I think about someone who is being coached to play the game differently, who is now earned trust, which is, a reflection of the fact that that player has grown in their skill set and their ability, a player that maybe has even scored a hat trick this season. I'm going straight to Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think it's easy to wax poetic about Eden Hazard, and I think Eden Hazard has so much natural talent that, you could basically put him in the sun if he was a plant and he would bloom and you wouldn't have to water him. Like it would just happen. Loftus-Cheek needs that investment, needs that time. And, has started to be comfortable in multiple positions, which is something we've seen him under other managers struggle with. He's earned actual playing minutes versus not potentially being played or being played intermittently under Hiddink or under Mourinho. So, played, preseason, inadequately by Antonio Conte. So the fact that we're seeing him regularly, that he's being integrated in the squad, that he is poised to, I think, take the third midfielder position at some point in this season. He is the person I would say that Maurizio Sarri has found a way to start unlocking his talents. And that is super, super exciting because he really has the skill set to kind of do it all. And other Premier League teams should be scared.
So you had how many players in that answer? Oh, no. Okay. Anyways. Eden Hazard, I find that tough for me. He did take about a month off, it kind of seemed like. Me personally, I think that the person who you've seen the biggest improvement from since Maurizio Sarri took over is N'Golo Kante. And that is because...
Whoa.
He is doing something
really?
he's never done before.
Oh,
He's an attack. He's not doing what he's done to win 2 Premier League titles in a World Cup. He is doing something completely different, and I think that he's improved because his stats were terrible in kind of those areas, and now all of a sudden he's really growing into it. And again, it's not saying N'Golo Kante was a bad player. He's now a new player under Maurizio Sarri, which I think is the most difficult thing. Look, Rudiger, he was always a ball-winning center back. He still is. When it comes to Eden Hazard, he is still a luxury player that only attacks and goes and scores goals. I'm open to Ruben. I think that's a good shout. Again, for me, you took someone who was at the best of the best in the world doing one thing and said, actually, I want you to do something else. And he's responded really well to it. So, Mike, the floor is yours.
wow, that one, it's a bit of hot take.
Like, it's
I
been
agree.
kind of a boring pod, if I'm being honest. I'm really trying to inject some controversy.
Wow.
Come
Great.
on.
Awesome.
Just
Good to go.
kidding.
The guy takes 5 shows off and comes back, and now we're boring,
Heyo.
you know, and unbelievable.
He has 2 goals. I mean,
I stand by what I said.
all right. For me, it's not so much how well they're playing this year. It's really just a comparison of what they were last year and their general fitness. But for me, I think the answer is really easy. It's Ross Barkley. He gave you that incredible moment, that equalizer against Manchester United. No one really came into this season really sort of counting on Ross Barkley to give you anything, really. And early on, Sadi sort of took to him, and he trusts him. It's sort of weird, the rotation right now for this club. I still would think that we'd see him a bit more, but considering that it looked like a disaster signing and one that just might be a source of embarrassment for Chelsea fans, to be getting anything out of Ross Barkley, and to be just, I watch Chelsea games now and I'm saying, this game could really use Ross Barkley. It's just absurd that I'm saying that, considering what it was when it first started over here. So I'm going to go with Ross Barkley.
I think it's a great shout, honestly. I
Yeah.
mean, he was always a knock, couldn't even pass a medical, whatever you want to call it, last season. Really, really written off, especially under Antonio Conte. And I mean, he is a player that now you turn to for a spark, for a dose of creativity. And I just love reading all the stories about him. He got his tattoos removed. He got a lot of people out of his life. He is so focused on his career. He's absolutely revolutionized himself, and he deserves every single bit of credit that he's gotten this season.
Brandon, you call it a failed medical. I call it being so Chelsea through and through. He made sure that we got a discount on the fee that we paid for him.
Well, hey, they give him more credit if that's how it worked.
But here's the other thing. So I think we did get some shouts for. So we did a poll on this. So Eden Hazard with 51% of the vote, Ruben Loftus-Cheek with 37%, Azpilicueta with 6%, and N'Golo Kante with 6%. And we did get a shout for Barkley. We got a couple shouts for Rudiger. I think Pedro is not necessarily a fair statement to say, because he's played in the vertical tiki-taka system. So he's just getting to go back to playing in a way that really favors his play style. I don't know if he's necessarily improved, because he's still doing about 50 miles of running in a singular match. And you would imagine at some point that if he was being coached up, that maybe he could run 30 and make it more meaningful. Maybe.
I don't know. I think that's just always been his game, is to be a nuisance, and then conversely, when he has the opportunities to be a clinical finisher, in the way that Willian just never has been. So I think he would have been maybe my prediction for kind of a standout player under Sarri at the beginning of the season, but. Yeah, I actually, I don't think Azpilicueta makes my list, as much as I love him to death. I think he's had some kind of off performances. N'Golo wouldn't have made my list either, and I love him to death too. Those are probably my 2 favorite players on the team. Ruben's a good shout. Barkley's a great shout. I struggle with the Hazard one too, and we can wrap on this, but I struggle with Hazard too because we said going into the year there was a chance he could have been the best player in the world, and I don't know if any coach in the world. I mean, if he plays well under Roberto Martinez, and I'm not sure like any coach in the world really makes a difference to him in his play style. So I struggle with that piece, but he's obviously playing better than he did last year. He's obviously can turn it to a different level than anyone else in the league when he really wants to. But yeah, I would go with Ruben, with Barkley, or with Rudiger personally.
All right. Well, it's out there for our listeners to get involved in now and jump in and let us know what you think. Obviously, it's most improved, not necessarily most valuable. So there's a lot of room for debate, and we would love to have it with you. Now, I guess as we head to the end part of the show, is there anything we missed from this match that maybe we want to talk about, maybe discussed? I personally thought it was amusing to see seagulls flying around in front of the cameras today. They take it seriously down there on the coast. They clearly do.
Yeah, they released all those just ahead of the game. Brandon.
Distractions.
It was a beautiful ceremony. No, I really do want to touch on Ruben really quick. I think there were, obviously he came on midway through the second half, and the way he can carry the ball is just something special. I can't emphasize that enough. I think he did this stop turn and almost had an assist in the box that basically left Brighton defender to not name any names here, but left him and his jockstrap on the ground, tumbling into the stands. I mean, his ability to stop, start, and to make plays, I think, could be really special for this team down the stretch. So, really intrigued by his performance today.
Intrigued.
I got something from the game that I don't think we've really discussed, and we can cover it briefly. But Alonso, in a crucial moment, got beat and was probably lucky to get a yellow. Do you guys think he should have been sent off?
You mean the people's elbow? He was really watching some WWE highlights, and he was in the mood. I get it. I understand. I've done that before.
Well, I you know what, Mike, probably the one thing that saved him was the distance to goal, right? I think that's probably it, if I had to guess, but yikes. That would have...
It was bad. It was bad. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, he had a really bad game again. This is it's been a concerning December for Marcos Alonso and his form at Chelsea. And I, frankly, I'll pose this to you, Brandon. I'm going to take over your job
again.
What do you if you're Maurizio Sarri, what do you do with him right now? Because he's clearly not playing up to his potential. I mean, if he would have hit that goal that he was unlucky not to score, then a lot of people forget about how bad his defending was today. But man, what do you do?
He's
time's up.
He's had a bit of a history of that. He can come good offensively. I mean, look, he's flirted with red cards in the past ever since he's been at Chelsea. I mean, he's got that in him. The fact that we haven't really seen it is probably a bit luck on his part. But you remember he lashed out a couple seasons ago and absolutely just stomped on someone, got away with it. I think he got a retrospective ban on it. But it's just, to me, it's always been in his game, and it's not great. Now, it's crazy. Even a lot of other pundits and journalists talked about this. Emerson Palmieri can't get minutes. No matter what he does, he can't get minutes. And to credit to Alonso, he's played every single minute in the Premier League. So Maurizio Sarri has his mind made up, and that's tough. And so honestly, I think that's the only way Palmieri is going to get in, is if Alonso gets sent off and has a forced suspension in the Premier League. It seems like no matter what, he's not going to change it. And Mike, to kind of your point of, we got lucky, we got away with it, I think you're right. And it's just something we're going to have to watch and see if it costs us later on in the season. But so far, he is riding that line about as close to hurting us big time as he possibly can, and still getting away with it.
Yeah, I don't really know. And maybe Mike Ryan, you have a different opinion here, but I don't know if you can keep playing him as it stands. I think something needs to change because he's even playing back. It's not like he's attacking that much anymore. You got forward a couple times today, but it wasn't as if he was constantly in the opponent's box, like he was earlier in the season. I'm kind of stumped on this one.
It's hard to make sense of his role on this team when he's not one of the world's best attacking backs. It's when the goals aren't there, when the set piece brilliance isn't there, it's kind of throw your arms up in the air. Why are we doing this? But the reason might just be he's the best option.
I mean, it has to be, right? But, we trust Maurizio Sarri and all the other decisions. So you just kind of got to fall in line on that. Dan, anything else that you want to pull out of this one?
No. I think we've covered it all, Brandon.
All right,
we're ready to go to the man of the match poll.
Yeah, say you know what's next. Run with it, man.
All right, so it's pretty simple. It was very easy actually this week, and Eden Hazard was the only true answer. 80% of people selected that option, but Nick, I did throw some spicy extras in there, mainly for you. Mourinho benching Pogba was gained 6% of the vote. Pogba's Instagram story today in response to
wait, I haven't seen it.
Benching Pogba.
I haven't seen it, guys.
No, it was more just a joke. It was more a joke.
Oh
no,
damn it!
Yeah,
5%.
That's what you get for not being a part of the process here.
Yeah, 5% of the vote, and then Charlie Austin, who put Southampton ahead and made sure that Arsenal did not stay level with us on points. 9%.
Can I clearly say though? I mean, when you think about the multiple, so each team in the top 5 right now has had over a 20 game unbeaten streak this year. Like, do you know how insane that is for the Premier League? Because typically there's, we said at the beginning of the show, the Premier League is just really tough. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's not as much as we'd like. I mean, obviously Southampton got one over on Arsenal today, but I mean, it's ridiculous because Spurs had theirs broken by Arsenal. Arsenal had theirs broken by Southampton. We ended City's. Someone ended Liverpool's, I forget. And, it's just like, holy hell, man. Like, these top 5 teams are just a cut above everything else. And Manchester United's horrible. They're just horrible.
I'm big on that. I haven't really gone public with my emotions, my feelings, Nick, but I appreciate you giving me the opportunity here. I don't. I think that teams in Spain and Italy roll their middle and lower table of opposition, and I think that just teams in the Premier League, whether it's because they don't get a break, whatever, I just think we just drop points. It's just less consistent for whatever reason, and maybe it's a lot of climate differences. It's like spitting rain and Liverpool and United. I don't know. I just personally think that teams look. Why I think that is because in Europe, other countries over and over again perform better than English teams. And I don't think that's because of the Premier League, personally.
I mean, maybe, but I mean, to have 5 teams all with 20-plus match unbeaten streaks, like, signifies to me that the golfing class between the top, 5, 6 and, Brighton is so significant at times that if you have the right run of fixtures, Mike, that if you're a top 5 team, that you can just kind of run the league for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah, Mourinho sort of pointed out, as he's wont to do, the sort of discrepancy in early fixtures, how he feels Manchester United has had a tougher run of it. I think Chelsea played a lot of top 6 teams, and maybe some of the teams in the top half that had some good run had some easier fixtures. But we just lost to Wolves not too long ago, so it's plenty tough for me.
Wolves, though, only 1 point behind Mourinho's Manchester United.
Yeah,
wow.
Let's go ahead and look at that. So top of the table, still Liverpool. Yeah. So anyways, they're on 45 points. Man City remain in second on 44. Tottenham remain in third on 39. And Chelsea rounding out the top 4 on 37. Arsenal stayed 5th on 34. And now the big drop, United in 6th on 26 points. So the top 6 teams all remain unchanged. As Dan mentioned, Wolves jumping up to 7th, West Ham jumping up to 9th. Leicester City, actually, and Bournemouth, who were knocking around the European spots, are in a 12th place for Leicester, 11th for Bournemouth. Newcastle's still trying to claw their way out, but it is now Fulham, and now Huddersfield and Burnley have dropped into the relegation zone with them. Southampton making moves with that managerial change up to 17th. It's, 9 points for Fulham from 17 matches played. 10 points for Huddersfield and 12 points for Burnley. So it's not so great if you're down there, but hey, don't worry. We're not there. We're not anywhere near there. In fact, we are going to be taking on Leicester City next in our next Premier League match. But before that, it will be the Carabao Cup taking on Bournemouth. Isn't that right, gentlemen? You touch on that in part 2/3?
We did not really, but when you talk about Fulham going down, I think, if they go back to the Championship, there's a great opportunity to little ground share option maybe as we look to eventually redevelop the stadium versus having to use Wembley, because that's worked so well for Tottenham.
Maybe. Hot take. I think that a lot of players, I think like a Moses could go to Fulham in January.
Or a Cahill.
I think both of them.
Drink water. We just offload people to them.
Yeah, just send all three of them. Just
screw it, Morata.
Like
we'll send him too.
Oh my God.
Well, I take that back. He's going to Barcelona. He already had a chat with them. It's all done. You heard it here first. No, you guys didn't hear that? Where he offered himself to Barcelona? No one biting on that one?
I don't think Barcelona's biting on that
Jordi Alba said they would love him there.
I'm also just want to make a quick breaking announcement that I am also offering my services to Barcelona from a podcasting perspective. I think that I bring a good voice. So I'm sure we'll be in touch with that team over there or not, because that's a terrible rumor. And
what you really should have done, though, is you should have offered yourself to PSG, because they still haven't gotten fined or slapped their hand yet for all the financial fair play issues.
Good point.
And
they spend money.
And they do spend
cash.
money. Yeah. So just something to consider. If you're going to offer yourself up, don't cheap out, Nick.
You can be my agent, Dan.
You're
All right. Well, anyways, that'll wrap it up.
Join Rock Nation.
Mike, Ryan, thank you. A huge thank you for hanging out with us. I know you're busy, but you love talking about Chelsea, and so we are so glad to have you on.
Oh, honored to be on. Thank you for having me again, and I'll see you guys out there.
Super, super nice.
Sounds good.
All right, Chelsea fans, well, that'll wrap it up. Again, we got a big part 2 and 3 this week coming at you, so make sure to tune into that. As always, it was a pleasure talking with you all. And until next time, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.